Welcome to another edition of the Mizzou Minute. I'm Todd Palmer, beat writer for the Kansas City Star, and I'm happy to be joined today by Vahe Gregorian, the wonderful columnist for the Kansas City Star, who was a beat writer for years at some paper on the other side of the state. We're not gonna put that name out there, but we're glad that he left the dark side and he's now part of the Rebel Alliance, right here with me here in Columbia. And today, we got to witness kind of a special moment. This was Barry Odom's first game as head coach at Memorial Stadium. He was a star linebacker here in the 1990s under Larry Smith, still ranked 7th on the career all-time tackles list for the University of Missouri. He was a coach on Gary Pinkel's staff in various capacities for 10 years, including last year's defensive coordinator. Now, of course, he inherits the Tigers. He inherits the legacy that Gary Pinkel left behind. And tonight they came out and just woodshedded Eastern Michigan. It took them a little while to get going, but once they did, impressive 9-touchdown performance and a 61-21 win today by the Tigers. What stood out to you, Vahe?
Well, first thing, as always, when I'm on Mizzou Minute with Todd, I have to first say that's all the time we have. But second of all,
see you guys next week.
Well, look, what stood out, you couldn't help but be struck by Drew Lock's night. And 5 touchdown passes, ties the Missouri record. He only threw 4 all last season. We can play with numbers all we want, and a little bit of it's is an odd context because we can pretty well tell that Eastern Michigan's just no good. So what does it really mean? Other than it's a link, to me, it's kind of you can assume it to be a link in the chain, not necessarily an arrival moment. But I think you can assume that it's a little bit of traction, and I try to make a little of that parallel with the same thing about the program right now. That this win doesn't really tell you much about where they are, but when you score 61 points in a night and you scored 56 points in your last 7 games total last year, well, that seems to be a good thing. Yeah. And we will have a much better sense of what any of this means a week from tonight. Yeah, I mean, Locke, he's struggled with his completion percentage in his career. The 8 starts last year, and even last week he's 23 of 51. He goes 24 of 37 today. 450 yards. That's the 3rd most in program history. Only, Jeff Handy? I was there for that Jeff Handy game in
1992 against
480 yards
State.
on 73 passes. The pride of Blue Springs. Jeff Handy.
and then Blaine Gabbert in 2009. The only quarterbacks who've ever thrown for more than Drew Lock's 450 yards in a game. Chase Daniel never did it. Chase Daniel did, however, throw 5 touchdowns in a game 4 times. Matty Mock did it twice. Drew does it for the first time today. But what stood out to me, in addition to just Drew's awesome performance, especially throwing the deep ball, which is a big part of this offense, is being able to go over the top. And we saw the receivers be able to get some separation, get deep, and Drew was able to connect on some big plays. Had a little Roethlisberger to his game today, I thought.
Well, to your original point there, I thought the speed, the receiver speed, not just the speed of the offense, but the receiver speed really impressed me tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, Drew's very deft touch on the long ball.
Yeah.
There were, a couple he probably wanted back, but there were a couple drops too. What I can't tell, and what there's no way to translate again, is how much of that is just he wasn't playing against pylons. I don't mean that, but what does that look like with getting a little
against
more
Georgia
pressure?
Next week,
and that's going to be.
Yeah.
But again, I don't need to keep going back to that. I mean, it's a night where you walk out of here feeling good, and I feel happy for Barry Odom. It was fun and partly because you have better binoculars than I do. I use Todd's binoculars to kind of ISO cam on Barry a lot, and the guy just never stopped moving, and I couldn't help but think about how contrasting that was to Gary Pinkel, who's the stoic demeanor and with a purpose, and you wouldn't say one's a better way than the other, but I think at a time where the program needs a little invigoration, this is a good injection of it.
Yeah, it's worth noting that the 5 touchdowns all went to 5 different receivers, and every one of them, it was their first career touchdown reception tonight. So
that's great.
Really cool thing to see. Emmanuel Hall, Ray Wingo, Kendall Blanton, who else? Jason Reese, and
who is the 3rd tenor?
Oh man, I'm gonna blow this.
Was our scorecard?
Who was it? Ray Wingo, Emmanuel Hall, Kendall Blanton, Jason Reese, and
Well, with another edition of Mizzou Minute,
Jonathan
we'll
Johnson,
have that.
the 87-yard,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
87-yard bubble screen. Johnson also returned a touchdown, but excellent moment for those guys. I apologize for the brain fart there, but really cool. And then Demarie Crockett also gets his first touchdown late in the fourth quarter. Joey Burkett with the interception late in the game for his first touchdown. So a lot of firsts, and we saw some playmakers emerge, and that's got to be a positive for the team moving forward. The defense still showed some cracks, too many missed tackles. 428 yards is still too many. But, Michael Scheer said, hey, we need to tighten some things up in coverage. And they really need the pass rush to show up at some point.
They do.
I know that they've de-emphasized a little bit.
Out.
But they've got to find a way to pressure the quarterback more.
They do. Now, are you of the mind that they're holding some things back?
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't know. I mean...
It's hard to get a read because we didn't get to see much of practice, so it's hard to know. The defense is a lot different than we thought it would be. The offense, Josh Heupel had talked about tempo in the spring, but then really tried to downplay it going into the West Virginia game, and then of course we saw them go crazy with tempo. So it's hard to know if they've got any tricks up their sleeve. I know Barry Odom said that they were going to incorporate more shifts and motions into the offense, and we saw a little bit of that today, so they might still have some more tricks up their sleeve for Georgia. Every team builds things in a little bit as they go. So we're going to find out a lot more about this team against kind of a Jekyll and Hyde Georgia team. Looked really good in a win against North Carolina in the opener. Can't quite put away Nichols. Is it Nichols College,
State.
Nichols University, Nichols State, whatever they call it now. Today, they come to town. So we'll get a good read. I think Missouri's going to be the underdog in that one. But if anybody's telling you they really know what's going to happen in that game, I think they're pulling your leg a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. That's what makes it all the more interesting. I can't wait to see that game. Unfortunately, I think I'll be on the way to Houston for the pesky Chiefs game the next day, but we'll be watching from afar.
Yeah. So keep coming to kansascity.com. You can check out Vahe's column from today, my game story, and some notes on the Mizzou page there. You can follow me on Twitter at Todd Palmer. That's Todd with one D, Todpalmer. Vahe Gregorian, your Twitter handle is?
At V Gregorian.
There you go. Just like Chance, Gregorian Chance. You can Google it if you're not sure how that's spelled. You can also find me on Facebook. Palmer KC Star is where you can find me there. And hope you enjoyed today. Hope you enjoyed the win, and we'll talk to you more next week.